The building stood like a proud spear of glass in the heart of the city, shining under the hot African sun. Cars moved fast around it. Horns cry like restless birds. People rushing in and out with files pressed to their chests. To many, this place was a face of progress, a house of power, where money spoke louder than names. But the elders in the nearby streets knew another story. Long before glass and steel, this land had been red soil where councils were held, where old men poured libation and asked the ancestors for guidance. Now, the ancestors watched in silence as feet hurried over their forgotten ground. Inside the office, the air was cold, the floor smooth, and the walls carried no memory. Here worked the young woman. She sat straight at her desk, her eyes sharp, her fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. She had learned early that dreams are heavy things for a poor child to carry. School had taught her letters, but life had taught her something harder. That to climb, one must not look back. In meetings, she spoke only when spoken to. When insulted, she swallowed her words. At home, her mother often said, "Endure today so you can eat tomorrow." Those words had become her shield and her curse. She believed respect was earned by position, not age. In this place, titles were louder than wisdom, and she wanted a title more than anything. Each morning, as workers rushed past, an old man moved slowly through the office. His clothes were simple, his back slightly bent, his broom moving in patient strokes. Sometimes he carried files from one floor to another. Sometimes he cleaned what others dirted without noticing. His name was spoken softly, if at all. Younger workers greeted him with quick nods. Older ones greeted him with lowered eyes. There was something about him, calm, steady, like a tree that had seen many seasons. Some whispered that he was once someone important. Others said he had chosen this quiet life. But power never paused for him. The young woman barely noticed him. To her, he was part of the background, like the walls or the dustbin. When he moved too slowly in her path, her irritation burned. She was already tired of waiting, tired of bowing, tired of being small. Above them all was the owner of the building. People spoke of him the way villagers speak of a distant chief. Few had seen his face, but everyone feared his rules. They said he rewarded loyalty without noise and punished pride without warning. Some claimed he never forgot a kindness. Others said he never forgave disrespect. His name moved through the office like wind, felt, not seen. That day, pressure sat heavy on the young woman's chest. A report was late. Her supervisor's eyes were sharp. As she stood up in anger, the old man crossed her path, holding papers she needed. He moved as he always did, slow, careful. "Can't you see?" she snapped. "I am sorry, my child," the old man said gently, lowering his eyes. Something broke inside her. All the swallowed words, all the silent humiliations, rose like fire. Before anyone could stop it, her hand flew. The sound echoed, sharp and clear. The slap landed on the old man's face. Time stopped. The old man did not fall. He did not shout. He only closed his eyes for a moment, as if listening to something far away. Around them, the office froze. Keyboards went silent. Breath was held. Fear, shame, and disbelief filled the room. Everyone knew this was more than anger. A line older than the building itself had been crossed. The office breathed like a living thing. Cold air from hidden machines, soft footsteps on shining floors, quiet voices wrapped in caution. Outside, the city roared with life, but inside, every sound knew its place. This building was young, tall, and proud, rising over the streets like a promise made of glass. People said it meant progress. They said it meant power. Yet the ground beneath it remembered another time, when elders sat in circles and spoke slowly, when land was not owned but cared for. Those memories were buried, not gone. In this place, survival had its own rules. Here, a voice was not measured by truth, but by title. Young workers learned fast. They learned when to bow their heads and when to smile. They learned that respect climbed upward like smoke and never fell back down. Silence became a skill, obedience a shield. The young woman had mastered both. She arrived early every morning, her shoes clean, her clothes sharp, her face firm. Books had carried her far, but hunger had carried her farther. She remembered nights when her mother counted coins with tired fingers and said, "The world does not wait for soft hearts." Those words lived inside her now. In meetings, she swallowed anger. When spoken over, she nodded. When blamed, she worked harder. She believed patience would buy her power. Still, something burned inside her. Each time a senior spoke harshly, each time her ideas were ignored, the fire grew. She told herself it was strength. She told herself she was learning how the world worked. Not far from her desk, the old man moved like a shadow that refused to disappear. His broom whispered against the floor. His steps were slow, careful, as if each one carried memory. He cleaned, delivered messages, carried files without complaint. Some workers greeted him softly. "Good morning, Baba." One would say. He would smile and reply, "May your day be light." Others walked past as if he were part of the furniture. Power did not see him, yet there was weight in his silence. Those who watched closely noticed how he listened more than he spoke, how his eyes held stories older than the walls around them. At times, younger workers wondered why such a man lived so quietly. But questions were dangerous here. Above them all was the owner, the man whose name could end careers or lift lives. People spoke of him in lowered voices, like a chief who chose distance. They said he was strict but fair, hard but generous. Some claimed he once came from nothing. Others said he never forgot where he started. No one knew for sure. He was rarely seen, but always felt. That day, pressure moved to the office like heat before rain. Deadlines were tight. Faces were tense. The young woman supervisor leaned over her desk and said, "This mistake will cost us." "Fix it." "I will," she replied, though her hands trembled. As she stood to collect the needed files, reminded her of all she carried. The old man approached, holding a folder. He moved as he always did, slow, respectful. "Excuse me, my child," he said gently. "These are for..." Her patience snapped like dry wood. "Why are you always in the way?" she shouted. The office stilled. "I am sorry," the old man replied, lowering his eyes. "I did not mean..." The fire inside her burst. Her hand moved before her mind could stop it. The sound cut through the room, sharp, sudden, final. The old man stood still. He did not cry out. He did not raise his hand. He only closed his eyes, as if hearing a distant drum. Silence fell heavy. Keyboard stopped. Breath caught. Fear, shame, and disbelief wrapped the room. Everyone knew this was more than anger. Something old had been broken, and the building, for the first time, felt afraid. The building rose above the city, like a new chief chosen by money. Its glass walls caught the sun and threw it back at the streets below, blinding and proud. Inside, the floors shone so brightly that people walked carefully, afraid to leave marks. The elders who sold cola nuts outside sometimes shook their heads and whispered. This ground once listened to prayers. Long ago, councils were held here. Names were spoken with respect. Now only titles mattered. The young woman entered this place every day with her back straight and her heart guarded. Education had opened the gate for her, but struggle had pushed her through it. She remembered her childhood clearly. Nights when rain leaked through the roof, mornings when her mother said, "If you want to rise, you must endure." Those words shaped her more than any book. In school, she was told she was smart. In the city, she was told to be quiet. At work, she watched and learned. She learned how to smile even when insulted. She learned how to nod even when blamed. Each small humiliation was stored deep inside her, like firewood waiting for a spark. Success came closer with every sacrifice, but something else faded away. Patience left first, then humility. Respect followed quietly, like a guest no longer welcomed. When colleagues praised her, she felt strong. When seniors ignored her, her chest tightened. One day, she told herself, they will hear my voice. But until that day, she believed power was the only language worth learning. The old man had seen many young people like her. He swept the floor slowly, his broom moving in steady circles. as if drawing symbols only he understood. His hair was gray, his hands rough, but his eyes were calm. Some mornings, he greeted the workers. "May your path be clear today," he would say. A few answered kindly. Others walked past, busy with dreams and deadlines. To the powerful, he was invisible. To those who watched closely, he was like an old drum, silent, yet full of sound. No one knew his full story. Some said he once led men. Others said he had lost everything for speaking truth. He never corrected anyone. He carried messages, cleaned spills, and listened. Silence had become his strength. Above them all was the owner of the building. His name moved through the office like a shadow. People said he rewarded loyalty without noise and punished pride without warning. "He sees everything," some whispered, "even when he is imagined not here." Whether that was true or not, fear kept everyone careful. That afternoon, tension sat heavy in the air. The young woman's supervisor stood over her desk, his voice sharp. "This error is costly," he said. "Fix it now." "I will," she replied, though her hand shook. She rose quickly, her thoughts racing. As she turned, the old man crossed her path, holding a file. He moved gently, unaware of the storm inside her. "Sorry, my child," he said softly. The words landed wrong. In her ears, they sounded like delay, like weakness, like everything she hated becoming. The fire she had stored for years found its spark. "Move," she shouted. "You're always in the way." The room stilled. The old man looked at her, surprised but calm. "I meant no harm," he said. Her hand moved before her heart could stop it. The sound cracked through the air. The old man did not fall. He did not raise his voice. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply, as if remembering a time when anger was settled with words, not blows. Silence swallowed the office. Fear crept into every corner. Shame burned quietly. Everyone understood that more than a man had been struck. An ancient rule had been broken, and the ground beneath the glass was listening again. The office carried a quiet rhythm that only a few noticed. Computers hummed, papers shuffled, and footsteps echoed softly against the polished floor. In the middle of this moving world, the old man walked slowly, like time itself refusing to hurry. His broom touched the ground with care, his hand steady, his eyes lowered but alert. He carried files from one desk to another, never dropping a paper, never raising his voice. To many, he was just part of the building. To some, he was something more. Workers watched him when they thought no one else was looking. They noticed how he greeted everyone the same way, whether junior staff or senior manager. "Good morning," he would say, his voice calm. "May your work be light today." A young man once whispered to a colleague, "That old man, there's something about him." The other replied quietly, "My uncle says he used to be someone important. Long ago." They never spoke louder than that. Respect lived in whispers here. The old man had learned the strength of quietness. Each step he took carried stories he did not tell. He had seen villages rise and fall, promises made and broken, sons forget their fathers, and daughters forget their mothers. Now, he moved through a place where speed was worshipped and age was ignored. Still, he carried himself like a man who had nothing to prove. Across the room, the young woman watched him with impatience. She did not fully understand. Every time he passed, reminding her of something she was trying to leave behind. In her world, slowness was weakness. Silence was survival, but only for those climbing. She believed respect followed success, not years. "Why does he walk like he owns the place?" she once muttered under her breath. Another worker answered carefully, "Because some people own things you can't see." She scoffed and turned away. Above all of them, the unseen owner of the building remained a mystery. People said he noticed details others ignored. They said he watched character, not just performance. Whether true or not, the thought made workers careful. Still, no rule protected the powerless from impatience. That day, pressure sat heavy on everyone's shoulders. The air felt tight. Deadlines pressed like stones. The young woman's phone buzzed again and again. Her supervisor's voice rang sharp in her ears. "This delay is unacceptable," he said. Fix it now. She stood quickly, anger rising like heat. As she turned, the old man stepped forward with a file, his eyes gentle. Here are the papers you asked for earlier, he said softly. In that moment, she did not see a man. She saw a delay. She saw years of silence forced on her. She saw herself at the bottom, still waiting. Can't you see I'm busy? She snapped. The room slowed. Heads lifted. The old man blinked, surprised but calm. I meant no disrespect, he replied. I was only doing my duty. Something inside her broke free. Her hand moved before thought could stop it. The sound cracked through the office, loud and final. The old man stood still. He did not raise his hand. He did not curse. He closed his eyes briefly, as if listening to voices far older than the building itself. Silence fell like a heavy cloth. Fear crept into every corner. Shame burned in quiet faces. Workers understood what had happened. A hand had struck more than flesh. It had struck history, dignity, and an unwritten law. The old man opened his eyes and looked around, not in anger, but in sadness. And in that stillness, the ground beneath the shining floor seemed to remember who it once belonged to. The building stood tall in the heart of the city, its glass skin shining like a mirror to the sun. People said it was the pride of the city, a sign that the land had entered a new age. Cars rushed past it, and young men and women walked in with confidence painted on their faces. Yet the elders who sold fruit by the roadside whispered among themselves, "This ground once heard the voices of ancestors." Long ago, old men sat here under trees, settling matters with wisdom instead of money. The land remembered, even if the people did not. Inside the office, everything moved fast. Time was counted in minutes, respect measured by rank. The young woman sat at her desk like a soldier on duty. Her back was straight, her eyes alert. She had worked hard to be here. Education had opened the door, but struggle had pushed her through it. She remembered her father's voice from long ago, saying, "The world is not kind to those who move slowly." Those words followed her every day. She had learned when to speak and when to stay silent. Silence, she believed, was the price of success. Obedience was not weakness. It was a ladder. Still, deep inside her chest, something ached. Each insult she swallowed made her stronger, but also harder. Respect, to her, belonged to those at the top. Moving quietly through this world was the old man. He swept the floors with care, his broom tracing slow circles, as if drawing signs only he understood. He carried files from office to office, never rushing, never complaining. Some workers greeted him softly. "Good morning, Baba," one would say. He would smile and reply, "May your day bring peace." There was dignity in the way he walked, though his clothes were simple. Those who knew a little of his past whispered among themselves. He was once a leader, one murmured. "Yes," another replied, "a man of wisdom." But power did not listen to whispers. Above everyone else was the owner of the building. His name was spoken the way villagers speak of a distant chief or an unseen king. Few had seen him, yet everyone feared disappointing him. They said he watched quietly and judged fairly. They said he punished pride but rewarded humility. Sometimes a struggling worker would find school fees paid or a hospital bill cleared, with no name attached. "It is him," people would say softly. "He sees what others ignore." That day, tension moved through the office like dry wind before a storm. The young woman's supervisor stood over her desk, his voice sharp. "This delay makes us look foolish," he said. "Fix it now." "I will," she answered, her jaw tight. She stood up quickly, her heart beating fast. At that moment, the old man stepped forward, holding a file. "Here are the documents," he said gently. To her ears, his calm sounded like slowness. His presence felt like another obstacle in her path. All the years of silence, all the swallowed anger, rose like fire. "Why are you always in my way?" she snapped. The room grew quiet. "I meant no harm," the old man replied softly. Her hand moved before thought could stop it. The sound echoed through the office, sharp and heavy. The old man did not fall. He closed his eyes, as if listening to voices older than the walls around them. No one spoke. Fear sat in every heart. Shame burned behind lowered eyes. The office stood frozen, knowing that more than a man had been struck. An ancient boundary had been crossed. And somewhere beyond the glass and steel, the spirits of the land were watching. Every morning, the office woke before the sun fully rose. Young men and women hurried to the glass doors with fast steps and faster thoughts. Their phones buzzed, their minds raced, their eyes stayed fixed on the future. To them, speed meant importance. Delay meant weakness. This place rewarded those who moved quickly and spoke only when necessary. Yet, moving among them was a man who did not hurry. The old man walked with slow, steady steps, his broom resting lightly in his hands, his shoulders relaxed. He understood something the building did not teach, that rushing the day does not make it longer. As he cleaned and carried files, he watched the young ones pass him like wind. Some nearly collided with him and sighed in irritation. "Baba, please move," one young worker said sharply one morning. The old man stepped aside calmly. "The road is wide enough for us all," he replied. The young worker did not answer. Speed had no time for wisdom. The young woman noticed these moments every day. She watched how the old man slowed the flow of things, how his presence forced others to pause. It annoyed her more than she wanted to admit. In her world, pausing was dangerous. Pausing meant falling behind. She had trained herself to walk fast, speak little, and never look back. Her success depended on it. When elders from her village called and asked when she would visit, she said, "Soon," and never meant it. The city had taught her that old ways could not feed modern dreams. Still, something inside her shifted whenever the old man passed. His calm felt like judgment. His silence felt like accusation. One afternoon, as deadlines pressed and voices sharpened, the tension thickened. The old man moved through the office with files tucked under his arm. He paused to greet a junior worker. "Remember," he said gently, "even a tall tree needs roots." The young woman overheard and scoffed quietly. "Roots don't matter here," she muttered. "Only height." Her colleague whispered, careful, "He's older." "Older doesn't mean important," she replied, her voice tight. The old man heard nothing. Or perhaps he heard everything and chose peace. The clash between them grew without words. Each step he took slowly felt like an insult to her urgency. Each breath she took sharply felt like disrespect to his patience. Youth and age stood facing each other, neither bowing, neither greeting. Then came the moment. Pressed by her supervisor's glare and her own rising fear, she stood abruptly. As she turned, the old man crossed her path again, offering a file. "Here," he said softly. "This may help you." To him, it was kindness. To her, it was delay. "Why do you keep interfering?" she snapped. "Do you think this is your village?" The words cut deeper than she knew. The old man froze, pain flickering briefly across his face. "This land," he said quietly, "belongs to all of us." That was when pride fully overtook her. Her hand moved fast, like the city had taught her. The sound echoed louder than she expected. Time slowed. The old man stood still, eyes closed, as if holding back a storm. Around them, the office fell into heavy silence. Youth froze. Wisdom waited. Fear settled. Shame followed. Everyone felt it. The sharp moment when modern pride struck ancestral respect, and the ground beneath the shining floors whispered that it had seen this before. The office was full that afternoon, more crowded than usual. Chairs scraped the floor. Phones rang without rest. Voices overlapped like market noise before rain. Heat pressed against patience. Deadlines hung in the air like smoke. Everyone was tired. Everyone was afraid to fail. And fear has a way of turning small sparks into fire. The young woman stood at her desk, eyes fixed on her screen, but her mind was elsewhere. Her supervisor's words still rang in her ears. "You must prove yourself." She had heard those words all her life, from teachers, from relatives, from the city itself. Proving yourself meant never slowing down. It meant never looking weak. It meant swallowing pain until it hardened your heart. Her hands trembled as she gathered papers. She felt watched, judged, measured. Around her, others worked quickly, heads down, protecting their own futures. No one had space for kindness. No one had time for elders. Then the old man appeared beside her, holding a file close to his chest. His steps were slow, careful as always. "My child," he said gently, "these are the documents you were waiting for." His voice was calm, but it landed on her like a stone. In that moment, all the pressure inside her rose at once. The office noise grew louder in her head. She felt trapped by expectations, by silence, by the fear of falling behind. "Why now?" she snapped. "Can't you see everyone is busy?" A few heads turned. Someone coughed nervously. The old man lowered his eyes. "I was told to bring them," he replied. "I meant no trouble." His humility only fueled her anger. To her, it sounded like slowness, like the past refusing to move aside for the future. "You people think this place is a village," she said bitterly. "This is not where elders sit and talk all day." The words cut deep. A hush spread across the room. Some workers shifted in their seats. Others stared at their screens, pretending not to hear. Everyone felt the tension tightening like a rope. The old man looked at her then, truly looked at her. His eyes were not angry. They were heavy, full of memory. "Child," he said quietly, "a river that forgets its source will dry one day." That was the final spark. Her anger broke free, unchecked and wild. Before thought could stop her, before fear could warn her, her hand moved. The sound rang sharp through the office, louder than any ringing phone. The slap landed. It was not just skin that was struck. It was age. It was patience. It was history. The old man did not fall. He did not shout. He stood still, his face turned slightly, eyes closed, as if listening to voices no one else could hear. Voices of elders, of ancestors, of a time when such an act would stop a gathering cold. The office froze. Keyboards went silent. Phones stopped ringing. Breath was held. Fear settled first, then shame, then disbelief. No one moved. No one spoke. Everyone understood, without being told, that something sacred had been broken. The young woman's hand hovered in the air, her heart pounding. For the first time, she saw what she had done, not just to a man, but to herself. The weight of it pressed down on her chest. Slowly, the old man opened his eyes. He did not raise his hand. He did not curse her. He only looked around the room, at the young faces, the bowed heads, the shining floor built on forgotten soil. In that silence, the building no longer felt strong. It felt small, and the ground beneath it seemed to remember its elders, waiting to see what justice would bring next. The sound of the slap did not fade. It stayed in the air, hanging like a drumbeat that refused to end. The office froze, as if the walls themselves had opened their eyes. Even the machines seemed to pause, their soft hum sinking into silence. For a moment, no one remembered how to breathe. Faces turned slowly, carefully. Some eyes widened in fear. Others dropped to the floor in shame. A few people pressed their lips together, holding back words they did not dare to speak. In that stillness, everyone felt it, the heavy knowing that something sacred had been broken, something older than rules and policies. The young woman stood stiff, her hand slowly lowering. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought others might hear it. The anger that had driven her rose no more. In its place came a cold emptiness. She looked around and saw no victory in the faces watching her. Only shock, only disappointment, only fear. The old man remained standing where he was. He touched his cheek lightly, not in pain, but as if confirming something he already knew. His eyes were calm, yet deep with sorrow. When he opened them fully, they did not search for revenge. They searched the room. He looked at the young workers, sons and daughters of the city, running so fast they no longer saw the road. He looked at the shining floor beneath their feet, built on land where elders once sat and spoke truth into the earth. A woman near the window whispered, barely moving her lips, "She has done it. She has struck an elder." Another replied in a shaking breath, "This is not just an office matter." No one corrected them. The old man finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "Silence," he said gently, not as a command, but as a plea. Silence teaches more than shouting. His words landed softly. yet they carried weight. Heads bowed. The young woman felt her chest tighten. For the first time, she understood that strength did not always rise with loudness. Somewhere in the office, a door opened and closed. Footsteps echoed briefly, then stopped. People wondered if the unseen owner had heard. They wondered if the walls truly watched, if the ground itself remembered what respect once meant. The young woman swallowed hard. I did not mean... Her voice broke, and the rest of the sentence refused to come. The old man raised his hand gently, stopping her. When the hand moves before the heart, he said, "The spirit is wounded." No one moved. No one spoke. In that frozen moment, the office no longer felt like a place of power. It felt like a gathering, waiting for judgment. Fear, shame, and disbelief wrapped around everyone present. And beneath the glass and steel, the land listened, patient and watchful, as it always been, waiting to see whether pride would speak again, or whether wisdom would finally be heard.